Welcome to the Life by Design podcast with your host, Jessilyn and Brian Persson, where we help you build your wealth through real estate. Today, we are so excited to have a power couple on with us today, Zorya and Patrick, who are real estate investors, also have two young boys, but have a background in engineering where they first met. I'm going to let them tell us a little bit more about themselves. Welcome, Zorya and Patrick.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us. So yeah, we can talk about ourselves quite a bit. So,
where would you like to start?
Tell us, we know you're a real estate investor, so tell us, what do you invest in and how do you help others when it comes to real estate?
So yeah, we've been investing since 2013. We've invested in single family homes, half duplexes, garage suites, small multifamily, and more recently, larger multifamily that Zorya has been participating in and working on in the U.S. And we help others by through a coaching program called Multifamily Makeover. It's a program where we help basically investors make the transition from essentially single family into multifamily and all the steps that are necessary along the way.
That's awesome. Now, we've known you for quite a few years now, and you were both engineers, I think, when we first met you. And if I'm correct, you've both stepped out of those careers and you're full-time into real estate. Can you share a little bit about what that journey looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So Patrick and I met in university, like fifth day of university. And yeah, we were friends. And then we did engineering together for 5 years. And, after university, that's when we traveled together for 5 months around Europe and really got started in our engineering careers. And it was about 3 years into that we, I guess, discovered real estate investing. We were doing a lot of reflection about what's next. We were I had personally got my PEng and was looking to the future now because that was always the goal. But once that goal was attained, we kind of thought, what do we do now? If we just work for the rest of our lives in our careers, or what else could we do? And we started looking more into investments and self-development books. We started reading other things other than engineering books. And that's when we really came across Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, specifically the Retire Rich, Retire Young book. And that's where we really learned about the concept of investing and, employer versus being an employee versus being a business owner, because we never were really taught that too much. So that really was the first mindset shift that really got us, down this road. And initially, we were thinking of, maybe we could be business owners. Maybe we could start an engineering consulting firm or something like that. But we pretty quickly realized we didn't really have the experience for that yet. And so we started looking into real estate investing, which was mentioned in that book as well. And we were thinking, I wonder if anyone in Edmonton invests in real estate. Because that's how little we knew about it. I wonder if this works here. And with a bit of research, we found other people that invested in real estate, found a real estate investing network that we could join and get educated. And that's kind of what it took to get started. Once you go from there.
Yeah. So I guess I was we bought our first property, not as an investment property, but we bought that in 2010 as our first condo. And we did everything wrong with that. We didn't use a realtor. We didn't use a mortgage broker. So we wasted time, evenings and weekends shopping for rates. We didn't review the condo documents really well. It seemed like we did everything wrong, but it was, a low price to entry and we were able to pay down that mortgage really quickly. And so it got to the point where we actually started wanting to invest in real estate. In the fall of 2013, we were able to, after getting educated, we realized, okay, well, let's refinance this condo. We had a bunch of equity there. And that allowed us to use that equity and go out and buy a couple of half duplexes. And so we bought, so in October we started looking into investing in, we said, okay, we're going to invest in real estate, and closed on our half duplexes by that December. And at that point, it's okay, well, we're out of our own capital, but let's make some systems and see if we can do this again. And so basically built the systems necessary on, what we'd already done, but then also started learning how to joint venture to be able to, continue to grow the portfolio and scale up. So we bought a couple more properties with joint ventures. And or bought a different house. So we moved out of the condo in 2015 because we wanted to have a little bit bigger place to be able to raise a family in. And so, and then at that point, price of oil went down, and a lot of the real estate investors in Edmonton were pretty nervous, and so we saw our rents drop quite a bit. So we kind of just said, hey, we got a number of mortgages on our name. Let's see if we can ride this out. We didn't know what was ahead of us, but managed to make it through there. And then we realized, hey, this is all good. We managed to keep good tenants in our units, and from there continued to grow and scale. So continued doing more joint ventures and some new builds and some new properties. So and it wasn't until I guess it was about 2018 that we were basically taking possession of one of our new builds. It was a new house with a garage suite, and it got to the point where the financing became a pain, and painful for our joint venture partners. And so they just said, the returns are great, but we don't want to do this again, just because it's so invasive for them that they just didn't. It was too much effort for the returns. That's how they felt. So I said, okay, well, how do we do this but make it easier for an investor? And that's when we started really looking at commercial financing and looking at multifamily. Like we saw somebody presenting on multifamily and said, hey, we should explore this a little bit more, because now they're talking about a business, and that that excited us.
Yeah, and we didn't know at the time that we could jump into that, but after learning more about commercial financing, it suddenly made sense, and we realized that we were at the point with we only had 7 doors at the time, so I think we initially thought we're not ready for multifamily yet, but after learning more about it, we're this does make sense because of the net worth we've created from that, and in the difficulties that we're having with our joint venture partners, and we couldn't qualify for residential financing anymore. So after just learning a little bit about how it works, we realized it was the right move for us to get into multifamily. And then just when we first got started, we got educated, joined a program that got a mentor that could help us through that first purchase. And that's when we started, and we could also recognize opportunities too. So we actually bought more of an unconventional type of multifamily, where it's actually multiple residential suited townhouses, and it's very popular now, but not many people were doing it when we first bought our first sixplex. And so, but we were able to recognize that we could put a commercial mortgage over these multiple residential titles. And so that was our first one. It was a brand new build. And since that was successful, we just repeated that and bought another sixplex, and then another eightplex, and then another sixplex over the course of a few years. And and then after that, I guess we should go back to the point where I stopped being an engineer was basically in 2017, when our first son was born. And so that was back when we only had four properties. I guess we were closing on number 5 at the exact same time I was giving birth. But we weren't too many properties in, but I already knew that, I think way before, that I wasn't going to go back to my job after having our son. And we basically decided that was a good step in our business, that I could focus on real estate and growing our portfolio, and Patrick could continue working and being our money partner, essentially. And so that was, so before we got into the multifamily stuff, I had already stepped away from my engineering job, and I was just focusing on that and being a mom. And then 2020 was when we took possession of our first multifamily, also the year that we had our daughter. And and then kind of continued growing
and
after
the pandemic,
that. Yeah, during the pandemic. There was a lot that
a lot of
that
things.
year. But now we're 5 years later from that first multifamily purchase, and now we have our asset managing 177 doors. So a lot of that partly in Edmonton, and Patrick's been able to focus on taking that, overseeing that side of things, and then I've been focusing on the large multifamily project in Houston, Texas. So that was 144 doors that partners and I acquired almost 2 years ago now, and I've been the asset manager on that, and that has been a big value add project where we've renovated 96 of the units and did a lot of renovations on the outside as well, and now we're getting to refinance that. And But the only reason we've been able to do that is Patrick stepping away from his job just over a year ago and been able to, so we could handle all of that. We basically went from like 26 to 177 in a matter of 1 month.
Yeah.
2023 was a busy year.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a good natural transition. Because like if Zorya was to try and do all the asset management for Houston as well as all the local asset management, it would just have been too much. And so it was the perfect timing to be able to, step away from one career and step into another.
Yeah. And 2023 was also 2 years ago when we launched the multifamily makeover program. So it was like doing that and basically mentoring other people at the same time. So it was a lot going on. And I don't think I could have gone too much more without Patrick like stepping in and helping.
That's awesome.
That's where we are now.
So,
And so now at this point, it's continuing growth, continuing to build our local portfolio, and then also looking at seeing where the opportunity is going to lie. Because obviously, there's been a lot of shakeup in the economy, a lot of uncertainty that's been playing out over these past 6 months. Just with the administration in the United States, changing government or potentially changing government in Canada, and so it's just about let's position ourselves to be able to take advantage of what's the opportunities to come. So that's where we're at now.
Awesome.
that's great. So, obviously you had many challenges along the road. Can you tell our viewers maybe one or two of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them? If they're looking to start this journey, obviously we don't want them to just start by buying 100 doors, right? That is too much and it will cause overwhelm and we shut down. And so we try to help our listeners by giving them nuggets and tidbits of just those first few steps. Maybe they're thinking about getting into real estate, they're working full time, they have a family, it can seem overwhelming. But I think you two addressed it very well. And we have a similar style where one of us stepped out of our career to take this on full time. The other one, let's call us the money partner, until it's time to transition us both. But it doesn't have to be both of you all in at once. And as a matter of fact, that probably wouldn't have worked so well for you guys. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Sure. So thinking about some of the big challenges that kind of came along the way, and there's been a lot. But I think that one of the things that is very important is being able to take, those growth actions, and carving out time to actually, take the next step. Whether that's, what do I need to do to accomplish this goal that I'm going after? And then taking meaningful action towards that every single day. So when we first got started, it's like, we knew where we wanted to go. So it was pretty easy. And we both had, careers at the time. So it's, what do we need to do today to move towards that goal? Whether it was refinancing a condo or, speaking with mortgage brokers or speaking with realtors or whatever it might be, just building that power team, taking meaningful steps every single day to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I would say that one of our biggest challenges, we didn't have so much of, a challenge getting started. So we didn't really speak to that so much. We just, we luckily found a good community where we could learn from. And then we knew that we had to find a power team. And so because we were both working full time, I was dancing and volunteering a lot. Like we knew we didn't have that much time to do this. So putting that power team in place, like hiring a property manager from day one for our very first property, that helped us, before we got to having challenges with our time, we knew that we had to put those systems and people in place. And some of the challenges I think through our journey, though, in the first few years, though, was just even though we had property management in place, we had still difficulty with kind of learning how to the whole landlording aspect of it and still dealing with a lot of difficult tenants initially. So we had to learn what our criteria was for accepting tenants. So that was just by making mistakes. Even though we had a property manager, we still made the final decision in who we accepted and who we didn't. And that was good because we did learn a lot during the years by having to make that final decision. And so, yeah, we've had difficult tenants that we brought in, for example, too low of a credit score. And now that is something that we don't compromise on. And yeah, making sure that we do an inspection, a good inspection of a tenant before we offer to a renewal. So yeah, so that's one of kind of some challenges, but there's, what did you talk about? I think that one of the biggest things has been just like this whole transition from both of us being in engineering careers to in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, actually, that would be probably one of the bigger challenges, just because it's all internal, not so much the external stuff. Like I remember external stuff, like when we were in our condo and we were on the board and we were having work done on the building, where it's roofing or siding or whatever it might be, or deck replacement and whatnot, and having to as a 23 or 24-year-old kid, sometimes having to have difficult conversations with contractors, but you kind of put yourself in those situations and you kind of lean into them and say, okay, I'm going to do this hard thing, but do it really well, right? Because there's people depending on me, whether it's in this case, the condo board and like other condo owners. But you kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to put myself in that difficult situation. I'm going to do it as best I can, and I'm going to come up with excellence, right? Kind of that mindset. Well, that is kind of an external hardship. One of the difficult internal hardships for me, anyways, was stepping away from a career that I'd spent, half my life, like 18 years working on, right? And I can remember being 10 years old wanting to be an engineer. And so that was a big, shift for me, was to say, okay, well, I'm going to step away from this one thing that I've been, gunning on for so long and step into something new, new chapter, new book. And so that was certainly a challenge. And it took years to kind of make those decisions and recognize that that's sort of what I wanted to go for, but then actually had to jump on it. And it was actually in August of 2023, a friend of mine passed away, and like in an accident. And that was kind of the triggering moment where, I realized, okay, well, if I only had a month left, what regrets would I have? Mm-hmm. And at that point, you do a lot of soul searching, and you realize, okay, well, if that's the case, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? What if this was your last month? And it just got me thinking about that quite a bit. And it just happened to be at the time when, Zorya had, had a lot on her plate. And it just made me do those reflections and say, okay, well, and every day driving to and from work, there was this kind of pit in my stomach where there was this feeling where it's like, like I should be working on our business. This should be the thing that I should be doing. And it wasn't until that, that incident or that event that, I really had to search within and say, okay, let's, where companies for years have placed bets on me, saying, hey, this person is a, competent individual, knows what they're doing, can be put in many different situations and do well. And now it's like, okay, well, put that same faith in yourself. And that was the decision point. So,
what was the regret?
Yeah, it would be, if I didn't do this and that was it, I would have that regret. So basically made the decision, put in my notice, gave a month to be able to transition, get my appropriate backfill, and as of October 2023, been working beside Zorya on this journey. So.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's you're right. That's deep to go soul searching, but sometimes it takes, unfortunately, an event to wake people up to realize this isn't the life I actually wanted, even though I might have put in years or decades into building it. If I'm not happy at the end of the day, or if I'm not happy going to work, what can I do to change it? And then for you to take that leap, because it's a big leap to be into entrepreneurship where it's 100% on you, right? You can show up and get a paycheck at work. If you're having a bad day or you're not feeling great, you can muscle through it and still get paid. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have to show up, especially for your investors, right? Because that's how you get paid. So it's a definite mind shift. And sometimes I find it's really hard for people to do that jump. There's a big fear, right? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? And, a lot of things can be dependent on it. But to take that leap of faith is, man, once you get there and you've done it, it's an incredible space to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so for some people, if they can just do it on the side, and just do a slow transition, that is probably the safest, but at a certain point
Yes.
you have to kind of go all in. And then we kind of did that by, me leaving my career first and then Patrick. But it's not like it was a surprise. Like we knew this was the direction we were going, but it was just like actually just making that decision and doing it. It took that event.
Yeah. And like because that wasn't the original plan. The plan was to continue working. The plan was to keep going that way. It was just that, yeah, again, that circumstance, that event that made me, have that realization. So that was the kind of the tipping point or the pivot point.
And I think a lot of the thing that also helped is just being clear on our values and our needs as well. And just through this whole journey, it's been a kind of a journey of discovery, like who we are and what's important to us as well. And I think being dialed in on that had also helped in the decisions that we've made along the way. So, making value-based decisions has helped a lot of the way, because Patrick did go from a transition from one job to another. And then again into entrepreneurship. So just leaning in on that and really knowing what our values are, and also our human needs. I'm not sure if it's a little bit less talked about, but the human needs as we see them are a growth, significance, contribution, loving connection, uncertainty, and certainty. So there's 6 different ones, and everybody needs all of them, but knowing like which are your top 3, that's really helped us as well. And so it's helped us understand why, certain activities that we do are fulfilling versus other things. And so it's because, and they're fulfilling because they meet those needs. So in my case, it's growth, contribution, and love and connection. Whereas Patrick is a little bit different, where his significance is a little bit more important to him. And so when we're like looking to what we need to do next and what will be a good fit, we've learned to kind of tie it into that.
That's great that you can have your values to fall back on. And I agree with that. It's values. And I'm always supportive of having a vision. Like you have the big picture of where you want to go with your family. And then when times get a little rough or tough or in a space you don't want to be, you pull it up, right? And you review, okay, what is our values and what was our vision? Like I know one we've shared for years was time freedom. Mm-hmm. We've always, no matter what we chose to do, did it give us more time freedom? Because that was our wealth goal, right? And if it didn't, we had to be like, okay, let's not take this on. It doesn't contribute to where we want to go. And it's not always easy when you're in a situation, someone's asked you if you want to do something, and we want to be like, yes, of course. But it's like, no, hold on. I need to evaluate how this fits into the bigger picture and whether it works for me and my family, and being okay to say no if it doesn't. Did you have more to add?
It's so much easier if you kind of almost have that as a reason, and it's yeah.
One of the big catalysts for change was going back to values-based decisions. Was my realization that that the companies that I was working for, the direction that they were going no longer aligned with my values. Which was a little bit odd. And that wasn't the case for the first 5 years of my career. First 5 years of my career, it was like, man, this is my dream job. And everything about this is like fully aligned. But when you start, if for example, a company isn't, doing things that are aligned with your values, all of a sudden you get frustrated. And it wasn't until, I listened to a podcast at the time, and, that was pointed out that you get frustrated when your values are not aligned with, say, company values or a partner's values or whatever it might be, and you can have frustration there. And that was kind of a big learning for me, is just like, no, if this, I can't be, happy or, moving forward in the same direction as this because it's not aligned with my values. And, that can really be, I guess a guiding factor in saying, hey, is this where you want to be for the next 30 years, or is a different path starting to shape up for you, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I experienced that for sure. The company I was with years ago
definitely no longer aligned with my values, and I had to leave it. That same gut feeling that you got when you were driving into work was what I got, just a little bit shorter, shorter of a drive, I think, because you had a heck of a drive if I remember where you worked. But yeah, I
Yeah, it was
totally
like
get that.
45
Like
minutes.
values based and that gut feeling, eventually it gets to you, and eventually you got to take action on it.
And it's probably not until after you've taken action that you realize like, oh, that's not there anymore. And it's like, oh, hang on, I've learned something about myself, and now if you're kind of like now in, I guess, in alignment with those values, things are kind of where they need to be. So
Absolutely. So we're going to start wrapping this up here. Is there one piece of advice you'd like to share with our audience that maybe didn't quite come out yet today?
yes.
You say one, I'll say one.
Sure, I'll say that growth comes from operating outside your comfort zone, right? Like from working hard, but then not shying away from being outside your comfort zone, but leaning into it, and executing with excellence, right? So like those, I go back to like when I was a young man, and having to act as quality assurance for work on the condo board. Those are difficult conversations, but you recognize that again, that's where growth happens. Is you know what the right thing is, and doing the right thing, and kind of leaning into some of those hard conversations or those tough times, or those tough activities. Those are the types of activities that allow you to grow, and not shying away from them, but stepping into them.
Yeah, and another big example is me like stepping into the asset management role for this property in Houston, and this project has been like 10 times 10x of what we've done before. And yeah, it took just, I guess, trust in myself that I could figure it out, and also like Patrick said, just leaning into it and putting in the work, and just facing those challenges, because that's where that growth comes from. It's not operating in your comfort zone. And so I had to also take that leap and going into a bigger project, and because it was, yeah, it's so much bigger, like everything about it, with from how it's in a different country, so taxes, insurance, leasing, everything is different, and then the complexity that comes from having multiple entities and having multiple partners, and doing it from operating it from a different country as well. So yeah, I think as advice to people getting started, whether, again, you don't want to jump into something big like that, but you always want to take, I guess, do the next scary thing. And I've, experienced that in my public speaking journey as well. It's like, that's how you continue to scale and grow. It's just stepping out, taking that next scary action that you need to do, but you feel maybe not quite ready for it, but you'll never be ready. You just got to go for it, and trust yourself that you are going to figure it out, and also not just do it on your own either. Like, what's helped us in our success is finding the education, whether it's through mentors or through courses or books, and also surrounding ourselves with other people. So not just mentors, but other people that are in the industry that you can ask for help when you need it. So that's was a lot of comfort to me also going into these bigger projects, is I knew people in the industry that I could ask. So if I didn't know, I knew at least who to go to and ask. And so it comes back to one of our recommended books all the time is Who Not How. Which is all about finding the right people rather than trying to learn how to do everything.
Thank you. Yes, that's absolutely great advice. And we're huge advocates for finding mentors and putting yourself in a room with like-minded people. So if our audience wants to get a hold of you, can you share their best way to do that?
Yeah, I think a few different ways. Well, you can follow us on Instagram at Zorya Belanger. We also have our website is brei.ca. And that's probably the best place where you can just find everything about us, our program, how to contact us,
Yeah, so
Sorry.
people can reach out to us also on LinkedIn. From a professional stance, that's also a very easy way to get a hold of people. With a direct message, Patrick Belanger on LinkedIn or Zorya Belanger on LinkedIn is another way to get a hold of us.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yes, we'll include the links in this episode when we do air it. We want to thank you again for taking the time to share your story and your journey with us. We really appreciate having other power couples on here talking the real estate journey like we do. And I just want to thank our listeners for listening in to the podcast, which we release every 2 weeks at Life by Design. You can find it on all streaming platforms. Until next time, have a good one. Thank you.